Today we discuss one of the beautiful poems included in Zeitgeist A04 of the UG students of the colleges of University of Calicut. It is in fact a wonderful poem, and it is by the greatest poet of the world, and he is from India. It is a poem written by Rabindranath Tagore, and the name of the poem is Freedom. So everybody knows the fact that Rabindranath Tagore is the Indian who got Nobel Prize for Literature for his wonderful poetry for Gitanjali. Now let us discuss the biographical details of Tagore initially. Afterwards, we will go to the beautiful poem Freedom. Now let's look at the biographical details of Rabindranath Tagore. Tagore lived between 1861 and 1941, and Tagore is one of the tallest figures in Indian literature. He was born in a highly educated aristocratic family in Calcutta on 6th May 1861. Most of his early education was done at home. He began writing poems at the age of 8. His formal education began when his liberal father, Rabindranath Tagore, sent him to England in 1871, intending to train him as a barrister like many of his contemporaries. However, the liberated spirit of Tagore could not cope with a conventional education system. Back in India, he participated in the national freedom struggle, that too in his own non-sentimental and unconventional way. In 1901, he moved to Shantiniketan and spent almost the rest of his life there in Shantiniketan. He became the first Asian and non-European to receive the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913 for Gitanjali. He returned the honor of knighthood conferred on him by the ruling British government in 1915, protesting against their imperial policies in India. His role in Indian education is seen in the foundation of BinoyVarakilVlogger University. Tagore's experimentation of the village Swaraj, especially after Gandhiji's entry into Indian politics, was a significant cultural alternative to Western modernization. Two national anthems, India's Janagana Mana and Bangladesh Amar Shonar Bangla, were written by Rabindranath Tagore. He died on 7th August 1941. Tagore is referred to as the Bard of Bengal. The Bard of Bengal means the poet of Bengal. He gained wide acceptance across the globe through the English translations of his works done either by himself or others. Though he was a successful writer in different genres, Tagore was primarily a poet. The notable poetic collections of Tagore include Manasi of 1890, Sonarthari of 1894, Gitanjali of 1912, Geetimalya of 1914, and Balaga of 1916. Gitanjali is a collection of 103 untitled poems, mystic, patriotic, and romantic, selected from his own writings in Bengali and translated into English by the poet himself. For Tagore, freedom was not merely political in nature, but a kind of liberation of the human spirit from all shackles of oppressive dogmas and conventions. Real freedom constitutes freedom from all kinds of oppressions, religious, political, moral, and intellectual. He wishes his countrymen to be united in their struggle to reach the highest state of freedom, overcoming the narrow domestic strife and the barriers of caste and creed. Freedom is an evocative document which attempts to state what it means to be free during the days of nationalist campaign. The poem assumes great significance when new powers of the neoliberal globe try to control our country. When Aung San Suu Kyi said the only real person is the only real prison, jail is fear, and the only real freedom is freedom from fear, she was suggesting the universalism of Tagore's definition of the same, that is fear. Now we have to come to the discussion of the small poem Freedom by Rabindranath Tagore. I'll recite the poem and thereafter we shall have a discussion of the very message and the meaning of the poem Freedom. Please listen. Freedom from fear is the freedom I claim for you, my motherland. Freedom from the burden of the ages, bending your head, breaking your back, blinding your eyes to the beckoning call of the future. Freedom from the shackles of slumber, wherein you fasten yourself in night's stillness. Mistrusting the star that speaks of truth's adventurous paths. Freedom from the anarchy of destiny, who all sails are weakly yielded to the blind uncertain winds, and the helm to a hand ever rigid and cold as death. Freedom from the insult of dwelling in a puppet's world, where movements are started through brainless wires, repeated through mindless habits, where figures wait with patience and obedience for the master of show to be stirred into a mimicry of life. So, this poem very vividly illustrates or explains the very concept of freedom according to Tagore. And in this poem, we have very powerful images and symbols of colonialism. As we all know, India was under colonial powers for many years. From 1498, India was under European control. We know about the arrival of Vasco da Gama, the Portuguese navigator, in on May 29th, 1498. And thereafter, the Portuguese were followed by the French people, the Dutch people, and the British people, and India. Many parts of the subcontinent were, of course, under the control of these European powers. And we know about the advent of the arrival of the British East India Company, and thereafter, entire India was governed by the English monarchy, the British Queen. And of course, not only India, there were many other countries most of the countries of Asia, Africa, the so-called third world countries were governed by the great European powers, especially Britain. And we heard the saying that Great Britain, the sun never sets in the Great Britain. And now we have to remember many Indians, many leaders of Asia and Africa, many leaders from the colonies struggled, fought, spoke, worked day and night for the liberation, the independence and freedom of these colonies. From India, we had Rabindranath Tagore, we had Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, then Bhagat Singh, a lot of great leaders of India, Chansi Rani. Okay, they are all a few among the great leaders who fought for the independence of India from foreign subjugation. And Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore, in his poems, just very powerfully asks Indians to be bold and strong mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically, to free themselves from the shackles, the chains of the colonizers. Okay, so we have the concept of the colonies on one side and the colonizers on the other side when we look at the very colonialism from a point of view of binaries, the colonizers and the colonies, and India was a colony. And in this poem, Freedom, Tagore is asking Indians to just be free from fear. Fear is the slavery according to Tagore. And Tagore is asking Indians and all who are slaves of anyone, it could be any individual or it could be any national or international power. And we have to mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and physically strong to free ourselves. So this poem very powerfully illustrates Tagore's notion of freedom. What is freedom according to Tagore? So Tagore asks us to be mentally, spiritually, emotionally strong to be free. If we have confidence, if we have willpower, if we are brave in our heart and soul, we are free. Maybe we are, of course, on chains. Maybe we could be in prison. And when we look at the history of the world, we hear about Nelson Mandela, the African National Congress leader, Nelson Mandela. We hear about Martin Luther King. We hear about Aung San Suu Kyi. We hear about Mahatma Gandhi. All these people were imprisoned, chained, beaten up by the white people or by the colonizers, by authority. But they always stood for their community. They stood for Africa. They stood for Burma or Myanmar. They stood for India. And they wanted their people to be free. And they were bold enough to speak against the injustice and violation of human rights of the so-called colonies. And now Tagore in this poem is asking British to just understand the bold standpoint of Indians and to be very careful. And he is asking his fellow Indians to be strong and brave and bold and valorous to fight against the colonialism, or rather to fight against the subjugation and exploitation of the British people. Okay, a very powerful poem which is asking Indians to be mentally strong, emotionally strong, psychologically strong, and with mental, emotional, psychological strength and courage, Indians can be free, Indians can get independence, and Tagore is asking Indians to get such kind of courage from his poems. And this poem, Freedom, is so very, very inspiring and motivating. Not during the pre-independent period, even after many years after the independence, this poem is very, very powerful and it is inspiring all of Indians. Let's come to the very first lines of the poem. Freedom from fear is the freedom I claim for you, my motherland. So the poem is addressed to motherland. The poem is addressed to India. Okay, India, my mother, my motherland. What I claim for you, what I have to offer you is freedom from fear. So, this is, of course, an exhortation, an address to the motherland of Tagore, the motherland of Indians, and it is an address to not only the motherland, it's an address to all Indians. Let us, all Indians, let us just uh, let us fight against slavery. Let us fight against the British colonialism. Let us fight against European colonialism. Let us be free. Let us be bold enough to fight against the authorities like the people who enslave us. Okay, so this is not only an exhortation to India, this poem is an exhortation to all the people in India. Freedom from fear is the freedom I claim for you, my motherland. O India, O Indians, be free from fear. Look at that. There we have alliteration. Tagore is, of course, using the figure of speech, poetic device, repetition of consonant sounds in the very first line. Wonderful beginning. Freedom from fear is the freedom I claim for you, my motherland. Fur, 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 fur. The repetition of the consonant sounds in the line of a poem is what is known as alliteration, and the first line is noted for its beauty in poetry. It's very, very poetic. Alliteration we have here. Freedom from fear is the freedom I claim for you, my motherland. Tagore is asking all Indians to be mentally, emotionally, psychologically, physically bold enough to fight against the shackles of colonialism, fight against slavery of colonialism. Besides, Indians must be mentally and spiritually strong. What could be your color? You could be black, you could be poor, you could be illiterate, you could be ignorant, you could be a slave, you could be a colonized, but understand, you are a human being. You are an Indian. You as an Indian, you as a human being, you as a son of God. You are all men are children of God. Okay, so you have physical strength, mental strength, emotional strength, and of course intellectual strength and spiritual strength. So with this you have to fight against the British people. They could be white, they could be educated, they could be using English, but you are an Indian. We are Indians, and we Indians are bold. Let us have bravery. Let us believe in ourselves and let us just fight against colonialism. Let us fight against imperialism. Let us just fight against casteism. Let us fight against racism. let us be free. Freedom from fear is the freedom I claim for you, my motherland. Freedom from the burden of the ages, bending your head, breaking your back, blinding your eyes to the beckoning call of the future. Freedom from the shackles of slumber, wherewith you fasten yourself in night stillness. Okay, so Tagore again wants India to be free from many things. What are the things? What are the realities? What are the forces that Tagore wants India and Indians to be free from? Number one, freedom from the burden of the ages. For ages, for centuries, for hundreds of years, Indians are under the burden of the ages. And what is the burden of ages? What has been on India? What has been the burden on India? What has been the great force or load or burden or weight on Indians? And that is the burden of colonization. That is the burden of colonialism. That is the burden of racism. That is the burden of casteism. That is the burden of exploitation by European authorities. Now, freedom from the burden of the ages. Let all Indians be free from fear. And when we are free from fear, we can fight against the burden of the ages. We can fight against years of colonialism. We can fight against years of evil of fascism, casteism, slavery, and colonial exploitation. And now, because of the burden of ages, because of colonialism, because of slavery, we have been bending our head. India has been bending its head. India has been bending its head, and we have been just drooping. We have been just dangling just because of colonialism. And now let us just free ourselves from fear. All Indians and India must fight against the colonial authorities, and we have to fight against all the evils and all the poison and venom that is just impinged on the country, that is just spread on India. Freedom from the burden of ages, bending your head. India and Indians are bending with the Lord of colonialism, Lord of years of exploitation. And Tagore is asking us to be mentally, spiritually, emotionally strong, psychologically strong, and he is asking all Indians to unite and fight against the evils of colonial powers, the evils of imperialism, especially the evil of British imperialism. Freedom from the burden of the ages, bending your head, breaking your back. India has been exploited by colonialist imperial authorities, and we have been bending ourselves. We have been breaking our back, the back of Indians. So India, motherland, Tagore compares India, motherland, into a mother. And the mother of Indians was bending its head. The mother of Indians was breaking its back because of centuries of burden. That is very important. And Tagore, as an Indian, Tagore, as a son of India, is so sad about the very pathetic condition of Tagore's motherland. Similarly, Tagore is just a representative All Indians are sad about the great burden of centuries of colonialism. Tagore is sad about the great pain of the bending of the head of India and Indians. Tagore is again sad about the great pain Mother India suffers because India is breaking its back with the great load of years of colonialism and freedom from the burden of ages, bending your head, breaking your back, blinding your eyes to the beckoning call of the future. Look at that beautiful expression, beckoning call of future. Beckoning call of future. The future is inviting us. Science, technology, freedom, and the great joy, the great growth, the great development that is going to be there as a result of scientific, technological, industrial revolution there in the country. So, blinding your eyes to the beckoning call of the future. The future has been inviting India and Indians to development. The future has been inviting, beckoning Indians to scientific, industrial, technological development in all the fields, education, hospital, medicine, then of course information technology, and we have been, because we are under the imperial authorities, because we are under the European imperialism, because we are under British imperialism, or just because we India and Indians are colonies, we have been blinding our eyes to the inviting call of future. We shall no more be slaves. Let us free ourselves and let us just develop. Let us be free. And for this, to protest against the British people, we need mental courage. We need to free ourselves from fear. Now we are afraid of the British people. We are afraid of the colonizers. We are afraid of the European authorities. No, let us not. And this is the kind of freedom Gandhiji had. This is the kind of this is the kind of freedom, or this freedom. What is freedom according to Tagore? According to Tagore, is freedom from fear is the freedom. So Gandhiji was never afraid of anybody. Tagore was never afraid of anybody. Nelson Mandela was never afraid of anybody. Abraham Lincoln was never afraid of anybody. Martin Luther King was never afraid of anybody. Okay, so freedom from fear is the freedom Tagore wants Indians to have. Similarly, all freedom fighters, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bhagat Singh, Jhansi Rani, they were not afraid of the great military power and strength of the Europeans or the British people. So freedom from fear is the freedom I claim for you, India. I claim for you, Indians. Wonderful poetry of the Nobel Prize winner of India, Rabindranath Tagore. So freedom from the burden of the ages, bending your head, breaking your back, blinding your eyes to the beckoning call of future. Freedom from the shackles of slumber, wherewith you fasten yourself in night stillness. Lot of beautiful images we have here, very, very beautiful metaphors we have here. Okay, so the slavery, the very enslavement of Indians, and the lack of freedom, or the very, very inferior feeling of Indians is compared to many metaphors in these lines by Tagore here. Freedom from the shackles of shackle. What do you mean by shackle? Shackle means hooks, chains. So freedom from the shackles of slumber. We have been sleeping. What does it mean? It is, of course, a very powerful metaphor. So a lot of beautiful poetic devices and figures of speech in the poem. The top line, we have alliteration. Freedom from fear is the freedom. Fur, 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 fur. Four furs. Repetition of the consonant sounds is alliteration. And here, freedom from the shackles of slumber, wherewith you fasten yourself in night stillness. Okay, night stillness is ignorance. Night stillness is slavery. Night stillness is being a colony. So we have been slumbering. We have been sleeping. What is slumber? Slumber is sleep. So freedom from the shackles of slumber. Okay, we have been chained by sleep. We have been chained by sleep, and we have been chained by, of course, the stillness of the night. Okay, so India and Indians were imprisoned by, we have been just very, very passive and sleeping in the chains of the night stillness. We never protested against colonialism. We never protested against imperialism. We never protested against slavery. We never protested against the exploitation of India and Indians by the Europeans and the British people. So Tagore is asking us to be mentally strong to protest against the kind of slavery, colonialism, exploitation. And we know what they did. They exploited the human and natural resources of India, and they just made us slaves. So freedom from the shackles of slumber. Let us just wake up. Let us not sleep anymore. Let us be free. Let us fight against the British imperialism. Freedom from the shackles of slumber, wherewith you fasten yourself in night stillness. Okay, so Indians have been inactive. India and Indians have been inactive, and Tagore wants India and Indians to just wake up from the slumber, the sleep of ignorance, and we have been sleeping in ignorance. We have been sleeping in slavery. We have been sleeping in exploitation. We have been inactive and passive. Now we have to wake up, and we have to just fight against the British imperialism and slavery. Freedom from the shackles of slumber, wherewith you fasten yourself in night stillness, mistrusting the star that speaks of truth's adventurous paths. Again, another wonderful metaphor there. There is a star over there, and mistrusting the star that speaks of truth's adventurous paths. So very truth's adventurous paths. There is a star that speaks truth's adventurous paths. If we are honest, if we are true, if we are right, we can just fight against anything. Gandhiji was true. Abraham Lincoln was true. Nelson Mandela was true. Mother Teresa was true. Aung San Suu Kyi was true. Okay, so if we are true, if we are upholding, and that's what is Satyagraha, Mahatma Gandhi Satyagraha. That's what Nelson Mandela was upholding. That's what Martin Luther was upholding. Okay, and truth succeeded. That's what Jesus was, of course, upholding. I am the way, I am the truth, I am life. That's what Jesus said, right? Because he was right, because he was goodness, because he was, of course, the moral, ethical consciousness of goodness. All right, so freedom from the shackles of slumber, wherewith you fasten yourself in night stillness, mistrusting the star that speaks of truth, adventurous paths. Truth has adventurous paths. Okay, so Gandhiji was truthful, Bhagat Singh was truthful, Abraham Lincoln was truthful, Nelson Mandela was truthful. So Mistrusting the star that speaks of truth's adventurous paths. Okay, let us not mistrust. Let us not just doubt the adventurous paths of truth. Truth is adventurous, and India has been truthful. Gandhiji has been truthful. Indians have been truthful. We have been victimized, and there no force can, no power can, no human being can, no country can enslave another country. So Indians are truthful because we didn't do anything bad. We have been exploited. Now we have to free ourselves. And when we understand our power, our mental strength, when we understand that we are truthful, we will be just uh, fighting against the colonial authorities. Let us do that. Mistrusting the star. Okay, let us not mistrust the star. We have a bright future. All the freedom fighters just spoke against about that bright future. So let us not doubt the bright star. What is the bright star? The bright star is the bright star of independence. The bright star is the bright star of freedom. And let us trust upon ourselves, and let us be adventurous. Let us risk our life, and let us fight against the British people. Let us fight against all evils. Let us fight against colonialism. Let us fight against casteism. Let us fight against fascism. Let us fight against imperialism, and let us be free. This is Rabindranath Tagore's exhortation, request to India and the people of India. Mistrusting the star, that let us not mistrust freedom. The star is freedom, independence, glory, growth, development, knowledge, wisdom. And let us not mistrust the star that speaks of adventurous paths. If we trust the star, if we trust independence, if we trust morality, if we trust the very ethical conscience, if we trust Gandhiji, if we trust truth, okay, we will be adventurous and we will fight against colonialism and imperialism. And now Gandhiji again, no, Tagore again speaks about the what he wants India and Indians to do. Freedom from the anarchy of destiny. Destiny. Okay, so we think that we are destined to be slaves. So this is the anarchy of destiny. Anarchy of destiny is, of course, blinding ourselves to fate. Okay, there is nothing like eternal enslavery. There is nothing like eternal colonialism. Okay, so the anarchy of destiny refers to blind and passive submission to fate. Okay, we cannot say that, oh, we are Indians and we are meant to be slaves. We are blacks. We are, of course, maybe like those red Indians. We are brown. We are Indians and we are destined to be slaves forever. No, nothing of that sort. Tagore says nothing of that sort. Okay, freedom from the anarchy of destiny. There is nothing like eternal enslavement. There is nothing like eternal or permanent enslavery or colonialism. Let us not be blind. Let us not blind ourselves to fate. Let us not be submissive to fate. Fate is just fate. We can change our fate. That's what Tagore says. Okay, if we are active, if we wake up and fight against the shackles of colonialism, we can change ourselves, we can change our condition, and we can just be free. So let us not be inactive and submissive to colonialism or exploitation anymore. Freedom from the anarchy of destiny. Okay, let us just free ourselves from being submissive to destiny, that is colonialism. Okay, let us fight against freedom from the anarchy of destiny. Wholesales are weakly yielded to the blind, uncertain winds. Beautiful metaphor again, wonderful metaphor again. Okay, so here India is compared to a boat. The greatest democracy of the world today, India, before 1947 was a colony. And that India, a colony of Europe, a colony of Britain, is compared to a ship, a boat, and the sails, we know the sails are the mats or the sails on which with which we have sail ships, right? The wind is blowing against the sails of the boat or the ship, and it is just moving forward. Okay, so what is the condition of the sails metaphor we have here again? Okay, whole sails are weakly yielded to the blind, uncertain winds. So we are just blinding ourselves to uncertain winds. That is about the ignorance, the very fear of Indians. We are fearful and we are ignorant, we are not mentally strong, and we are not free. That is because we are a colony and we think that we suffer from inferiority complex, and Indians think that Indians are meant to be the slaves of the British people for maybe many years, and whole sails are weakly yielded to the blind uncertain wind. So the sails of India, the sails of the boat of India are just yielding to the blind, uncertain winds. Okay, so we have to be strong and our sails have to stand straight, upright, and erect. And then the wind, when the wind is blowing against the sails, our ship will go forward to the success of growth, development, success, and glory. And that will be a shore of liberation. That will be a shore of independence. And Tagore wants the boat of India, the boat of each of Indians to, of course, the sails of the boat of each of Indians to be upright, with confidence, with courage, and to just row forward, to go forward to the shores of independence and liberation. And that will happen only when we are mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and physically strong. That is physically, of course, free. That is, we are no more fearful. So whole sails are weakly yielded to blind, uncertain winds. Now we are submissive. We are submitting ourselves. We are just blinding ourselves to passivity or inactivity. No, let us not do that. Okay, so whole sails are weakly yielded to the blind, uncertain winds, and the helm to a hand ever rigid and cold as death. And the helm. So the helm refers to the steering of the steering of the boat, the steering of the ship. So the steering of our boat, our ship, the ship of India is controlled by a captain. What is special about the, again, metaphor? Okay, a lot of metaphors here. India is compared to a boat. India is compared to a ship. Then Indians are compared to, or the leaders of India are compared to captains holding the steering. And what is special about the hands of the captains holding the steering of the ship of India? And the helm, H-E-L-M, helm, means the steering of a ship, refers to people controlling the ship. Here refers to Indians, the leaders of India, people of India. And the helm to a hand ever rigid and cold as death. So the hands of the captains of the steering of the ship of India are rigid and cold, inactive, passive, cold and dead. So, because of that reason, our ship doesn't go to the shore of success. So, if we have to have independence, if we have to have freedom, the captains, the leaders, each men and women of India should be strong, should be free from rigidity, should be free from coldness. They must be warm. They must be warm-hearted. They must be active. They must just wake up, and they must be free from fear. Then India will be independent. India will be free from colonial authorities. India will be free from all evils such as casteism, racism, okay, imperialism, slavery, all that beautiful poetry of Tagore, and the helm to a hand ever rigid and cold as death. Freedom from the insult of dwelling in a puppet's world. Okay, now we have been living in a puppet's world. Indians are like puppets. So freedom from the insult. We suffer from insult. Don't you feel sad about your condition? India and Indians, don't you feel any kind of insult? Aren't you being insulted? Haven't you been insulted? Insulted by external force, external authorities, external authorities, the French people, the Dutch people, the Portuguese people, the British people, the European people. Okay, they are the external forces, and the external forces enslave us, and we are just living in a puppet's world. We are living in a puppet's world. We are just puppets. We are being controlled by, in a pantomime, like in a pantomime, right? We are being controlled by external authorities. No, India must stand strong. Indians must be bold and courageous. So, freedom from the anarchy of destiny, whole sails are weakly yielded to the blind, uncertain winds, and the helm to a hand ever rigid and cold as death. Freedom from the insult of dwelling in a puppet's world. Let us not live in a puppet's world anymore. Let us free from the insult of living in an external, in a world which is under external force. That is, let us no more be a colony. Tagore is asking Indians. Now, where movements are started through brainless wires, repeated through mindless habits. And now what's the condition of Indians? Where movements are started through brainless wires. Okay, so here we have the movements, the revolts, the activities of Indians, where movements are started through brainless wires. Okay, so nothing in India at the moment is successful because movements are started through brainless wires. We don't think intellectually. Okay, we have to think intellectually, and we have to be more and more intellectual powers, and with proper thinking, with proper planning, our movements will succeed. Our revolts and protests will succeed. Okay, so some of the rebellions and revolts of Indians against the colonizers didn't succeed, where movements are started through brainless wires, repeated through mindless habits. So Indians have been doing foolish things. Indians did not do anything very cunning and shrewd and clever and intellectually good. Okay, so we have to be free from fear. Only when we are free from fear, all our movements and activities will be successful, and where movements are started through brainless wires, repeated through mindless habits. So whatever we do today is Whatever India and Indians do before independence was inactive, submissive, was just like puppets. We never did anything with our thinking. We acted under external forces. We lived under colonial authorities. No, we have an intelligence. We have critical thinking. We have free thinking. We have reason. Let us think with our intelligence and let us understand that we are living in a puppet's world, and let us just wake up and fight against this kind of enslavery or this kind of colonialism, where movements started through brainless wires, repeated through mindless habits. We have been doing foolish things, where figures wait with patience and obedience for the master of show. Now look at India, where figures refers to again a metaphor. Figures wait with patience and obedience for master of show to be stirred into a mimicry of life. So Indians, they are just like puppets. We are just like puppets. We are like figures. And what do? We wait with patience and obedience for the master of the show. Okay, so all Indians, just like puppets, just like figures, wait with patience. My lord, we are addressing Europeans, we are addressing British people. We are waiting for their order, and they ask us, till the land, cut the trees, collect all the resources, and Indians are exploited by the British people. And Indians, just like puppets, figures, we are metaphors. Indians are compared to figures. We Indians stand with patience and obedience. We obey the British people, we obey the European people, and we want to be stirred into a mimicry of life. What is mimicry of life? Mimicry of life is unreal life, a life under the colonizers, a life under imperialists, a life under British people, a life under Portuguese people, French people, Dutch people. And that life of India and Indians is unreal. It is mimicry of life. Okay, so let us just free ourselves from a life which is controlled by external authorities, a life which is controlled by European authorities. So where figures wait with patience and obedience or for the master of show. Master of show is British people, British soldiers, British engineers, British officers, British governors, viceroys, right? So where figures, Indians wait with patience and obedience for master of show, British people, to be stirred into a mimicry of life. So Indians are rather inactive, submissive, and their inactivity and their submissiveness, according to Tagore, is because of fear. So Tagore is asking us to be free from fear. If we are free from fear, we will be strong and we will be independent. So Tagore is asking Indians to understand that they are real men and women with courage. So if we have courage, we will fight against the British people and we will be independent. And fear, according to Tagore, is freedom from fear, is the freedom I claim for my motherland. Oh India, wake up. Oh India, be strong. Oh India, be courageous. And oh Indians, fight for freedom and enjoy independence. That is the beautiful poem of Tagore. Now we will come to the question answers of the beautiful poem, Freedom. We are in page number 26. Question number 1. In which year did Tagore win the Nobel Prize? In which year did Tagore win the Nobel Prize? Very simple and easy. We saw in that introduction, 1913, Tagore won Nobel Prize for Gitanjali. Next question, which of the following is not a work by Tagore? Look at the question. Which of the following is not a work by Tagore? Gitanjali, Gidimalya, Anantmath, Manasi. And the answer is Anantmat. Okay. The other three, Gitanjali, Malya, and Manasi, are works by Tagore. Next question. What is meant by the phrase puppet's world? The phrase puppet's world means the country is controlled by external forces. It means India has been a puppet of British and European colonizers. Next question. What does the phrase beckoning call of the future refer to? The phrase beckoning call of the future refers to invitation to independence. Okay, so India is invited to independence. India is invited to growth, development, scientific, technological liberation and progress. So what does the phrase beckoning call of the future refer to? Beckoning call of the future refers to the call of future of to independence. Future is, time is, okay, asking Indians to be free. Indians will no more be puppets of the European imperialist authorities, the British people. Now we move on to the next question. Third question, page number 27. What is referred to as burden of the ages? Beautiful metaphor by Rabindranath Tagore. Burden of the ages is a wonderful metaphor in which Tagore refers to the yoke of British colonialism. India from 1498 to the 20th century, that is, of course, 1947 is the year of independence. Till then, India was suffering. India was loaded. India was loaded with slavery, loaded with of course, colonialism. We were a colony. So the phrase "burden of the ages" refers to centuries of being a colony, centuries of colonialism in India. Next question, question number 4. Explain the figure of speech used in the line "burden of the ages, bending your head, breaking your back." Again, another alliteration. Like freedom from fear is freedom. Of course, fur. We have burden. Look at that, burr. All right. Breaking your back, burr. Blinding your eyes to the beckoning. So, burden of ages, bending your head, breaking your back, blinding your eyes to the beckoning. Burr. The repetition of consonant sounds is the figure of speech, the poetic device, which is known as alliteration. So, the figure of speech used in the line, burden of the ages, bending your head, breaking your back, is alliteration. Now we come to the next question, paragraph question. Images of colonialism in the poem Freedom. Rabindranath Tagore's poem Freedom is ornated with a number of images and metaphors of colonialism. A few of them. First image is fear. Colonialism is fear. Fear of the colonized against, or rather, fear of the colonized of the colonizer. Colonizers are superiors, bosses, and the colonized Indians. So British people and the Indians. So first image is the very image of fear. Fear is an image. Okay. So another image is burden of the ages. Burden of the ages. Burden of the ages is colonialism. East India Company, Portuguese people, Dutch people, French people, and the Great Britain, on which the sun never sets. So, burden of the ages, colonialism. Another, bending your head. India is bending its head because on the head of each Indian is the great force of exploitation of colonialism. Bending your head. Another image, breaking back. India is suffering from back pain. Indians suffer from back pain because the back of India is breaking because we have been a colony. Beautiful image. Next, blinding eyes. Blinding eyes. Indians are blind. Why? Social, economic, political blindness. Not just those three: spiritual, intellectual, scientific, technological blindness, blinding eyes. And we have been blind to liberation, independence, blinding eyes because we are colonies. Okay, now shackles of slumber, shackles of slumber, shackles, chains, and hooks. India as a colony, just in slumber, in sleep of slavery, of colonialism. Again, okay, another night stillness. There is no light in India because we are a colony. There is no night stillness. There is just stillness, no progress, no development. Social, political, economic, scientific, technological, no growth there at all. So night stillness. There is just ignorance, illiteracy, poverty, and suffering in India. That is night stillness. That is colonialism. Next, anarchy of destiny. Colonialism, anarchy of destiny. Okay. Next is weekly sales. Again, colonization. The sales of the boat of India is just drooping down because we are subjugated by the imperial authorities. Another image, blind, uncertain winds. Another image, hands rigid and cold as death. Puppets world, brainless wires, mindless habits. Figures wait with patience and obedience, mimicry of life. My God, entire poem is ornated with wonderful images of colonialism. And when we look at these images, we feel sorry for ourselves and we wake up. No. I don't want to be a puppet anymore. I don't want to be cold and rigid anymore. I don't want to be suffering from back pain, neck pain. Okay, beautiful poem of Tagore. Next question, patriotism as a theme in Tagore's prescribed poem. Okay, what is patriotism? Patriotism is the feeling of a citizen, the feeling of a person, of a country, for the love of a citizen for the country is patriotism. I, as an Indian, love my country. Okay, so every Indian must love India, and every Indians must fight against all the evils, all the forces that just shackle and squeeze and just exploit the country. Okay, so when we love our country, we will try to free our country, we will try to protect our country, we will try to save our country, we will live for our country, we will just bleed for our country. That's what Mahatma Gandhi did, that's what Rajiv Gandhi did, that's what Indira Gandhi did, that's what Jhansi Rani did, that's what Bhagat Singh did, that's what all the freedom fighters did. And this poem of Tagore is very much about patriotism. This poem is about the necessity of loving the nation, necessity of loving India, necessity of just being a god of India. All Indians must protect India. All Indians must fight for India. Let us not be a colony anymore. Let us fight against British. Let us fight against Portuguese people. Let us fight against Dutch people. Let us fight against French people. This poem is about patriotism. Besides this, of course, you can just write about the textual references. So also you can write about India is suffering from many evils, and if we are patriotic, of course, we do not want to be we do not want to have any kind of evil in our society. And besides colonialism, we also have casteism, we have communalism, We have, of course, regionalism, we have slavery, we have illiteracy, we have unemployment. Okay, all this we have. So we have to fight against all that if we are patriotic. Each and every Indian will try his or her best to contribute to the country, and each and every Indian will see to it that the country is developing day by day, scientifically, technologically, then of course in all walks of life, like financial, social, political, scientific, medicine, employment, agriculture, every field there must be communication, technology. Okay, every field there must be development, and each and every Indian, each and every citizen should contribute to the development. Similarly, of course, literature, sports, all right, everything, all round development of the country comes under patriotism, and every citizen has to contribute to the development and growth of the country. That is patriotism, and this poem is very much about patriotism, because Tagore is asking us, asking Indians to be bold and courageous. If Indians are bold and courageous, India will be free. That is freedom from fear, is the freedom I claim for you, my motherland. Beautiful poem. Now we come to the next question. That is an essay question. Essay questions, remember whatever I said about this poem, whatever I said about Tagore, whatever I said about India, whatever I said about India before independence 1947, and whatever I said about the very lines of this poem. With all that, you write down whatever I spoke to you, and you just get a wonderful answer to this essay question. First essay question is, define the concept of freedom based on Tagore's freedom. Okay, so Tagore's concept of freedom is very much vividly explained in this poem from the beginning till the end, and it is there in the very introduction in page number 25 as such. I'll read a little bit. And for Tagore, freedom was not merely political in nature, but a kind of liberation of the human spirit from all shackles of oppressive dogmas and conventions. Look at that. That is freedom according to Tagore. Freedom to Tagore is liberation of the human spirit, liberation of the human mind, liberation of the human soul, liberation of each and every Indians from all shackles of oppressive dogmas and conventions. Real freedom constitutes freedom from all kinds of oppressions, religious, political, moral, and intellectual. No Indian should be under any religion, or he must not be a religious slave, he must not be a political slave, he must not be a moral slave, he must not be an intellectual slave. Each and every Indian should have his own religious conviction, his own political conviction, his own moral conviction, and his own intellectual conviction. All right, and we must educate ourselves, and we must have free thinking, critical thinking, reasonable thinking. That's what Tagore is asking. That's freedom according to Tagore. His wishes, Tagore's wishes, his countrymen, Indians, to be united in their struggle to reach the highest state of freedom, overcoming the narrow domestic strife and barriers of caste and creed. Freedom is an evocative document which attempts to state what it means to be free during the days of nationalistic campaign. And ultimately, of course, this poem, Freedom According to Tagore, is being free, being independent. India as a country must be free from any external force, any external authority, British, French, Portuguese, Dutch, or whatever. So India was a colony for a long time. And Tagore wants India no more under. India should be an independent country. And there are leaders here. There must be elected representatives here. And with that wish of Tagore, Gandhiji, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bhagat Singh, Jhansi Rani, and many other freedom fighters, we became free in 1947, and we have a constitution of our own, and we are a socialist, sovereign, secular, democratic country. and we are the largest democracy of the world. All this is because of the great thinking, vision, and ideology of Tagore, Nehru, Gandhiji, and all the freedom fighters. So this poem really contributed to waking up the Indians. All right. Now with that, we come to the activity. All of you students must do this activity. Collect some of the patriotic songs written in your mother tongue and discuss how the idea of political freedom is developed in them. So with this, we come to the end of the wonderful poem Freedom by Rabindranath Tagore. Now we will just look at the very articles we have completed from Zeitgeist, the course, General English course for semester 2 of the students of the colleges of University of Calicut. This is in fact Zeitgeist, and from Zeitgeist we have so far completed Should the Assassin of Gandhi Be Killed by Perles Buck, Preamble to the Constitution, Toba Tek Singh Sadat Hassan Manto, Freedom by Rabindranath Tagore, The End of Living and the Beginning of Survival by Chief Seattle, On Killing a Tree by Giv Patel. And in the next live streaming session, I will be discussing the beautiful story which is titled Slate the Goat by Isaac Bashevis Singer. A wonderful story. We will discuss it next. So, so far we have completed six lessons from Zeitgeist. So some of these lessons I discussed in Microsoft Teams. Some I went live streaming. So all the live streaming sessions, most of these articles are in the live streaming, recorded in the live streaming sessions. So students who missed the class, please watch the live streaming sessions and write down the questions and answers and ensure that you study very well, and of course you get complete score in your examination. So again, remember, of course, whatever is important is becoming a responsible citizen, becoming a productive individual, contribute to your family, contribute to your society, contribute to the country, contribute to the world. Okay, getting marks is not important. What is important is becoming a man who is contributing to the world, the country, the community, the society, the family. And always important is the world, the country, not the family and yourself. Okay, all right. The world is more important than the individual and the family. The country is more important than the individual and the family. Okay, individual, ourselves and the family is of course important, but above all is our nation, above all is our world. Let us just work and live for a wonderful world, a wonderful India. Thank you so much for listening. May God bless you. Bye bye.